Foldables break, everyone knows it. Screens crack at the hinge, dust gets trapped, and that crease looks like your phone survived a car accident. So, when Apple's iPhone Fold leaks started dropping, the big question wasn't, will Apple make a foldable? It was, can Apple make one that doesn't feel like a $2,000 science experiment? And according to fresh leaks, Apple might have actually cracked it. We're talking a 7.8-inch internal display with a wider aspect ratio that makes sense, a 5.5-inch outer screen that's actually usable, and a design philosophy that's so Apple it hurts. By the end of this, you'll know if the iPhone Fold is the first foldable worth trusting with your actual money or if it's just another expensive flex. But there's one design decision Apple made that Samsung's engineers are probably losing sleep over, and it's not what you think. Here's why this leak matters right now. Foldables have been the future for years, but they're still stuck in early adopter jail. Samsung's on their 6th generation, and people still treat the Galaxy Z Fold like a Fabergé egg. Screens still crease, durability is still a gamble, and the form factor still feels like a compromise. Apple entering this space isn't about catching up. It's about deciding the category is finally ready for normal humans who don't baby their phones. If you've been sitting on your iPhone 14 or 15 waiting for something actually interesting, or if you've been eyeing foldables but don't trust them yet, this is the moment. Apple doesn't release products to join a market. They release products to end the debate. Let's talk dimensions because Apple clearly did homework here. The iPhone Fold reportedly rocks a 7.8-inch internal display when unfolded. That's not just big, that's iPad mini energy in your pocket. And here's where it gets smart. Apple went with a wider aspect ratio instead of the tall, narrow nightmare Samsung's been pushing. Translation: watching YouTube, Netflix, or editing photos actually feels natural instead of like you're peeking through a mailbox slot. The outer display clocks in at 5.5 inches, which is genuinely usable for quick stuff like replying to texts, checking notifications, or doom scrolling Twitter without unfolding the whole thing. Most foldables make you unfold them just to do basic tasks. Apple said no. Now here's the kicker. When folded, this thing is expected to be wider and shorter than competitors, which means it actually fits in a pocket like a normal phone. Samsung's Z Fold feels like carrying a TV remote. Apple's approach: portability first, flex second. And at 4.5 millimeter thin when unfolded and around 9 to 9.5 millimeter folded, this is borderline witchcraft. That's thinner than most people's phone cases. So, what does this actually mean when you're living with it? Picture this. You're on a flight, middle seat, stuck between two people who clearly don't understand personal space. You unfold the iPhone Fold and suddenly you've got a tablet-sized screen for Netflix without pulling out an actual iPad. That wider screen ratio means movies don't have giant black bars, and multitasking apps side by side doesn't feel cramped. That's the win. Now picture you're at a coffee shop. Phone buzzes. Normally you'd have to unfold a Galaxy Z Fold just to see who texted. With the iPhone Fold's 5.5-inch outer display, you just glance, reply, done. No awkward unfolding ceremony. Gaming? That 7.8-inch display is basically a handheld console. Genshin Impact, Call of Duty Mobile, whatever. You've got screen real estate that makes your friends jealous. But here's the flip side. You're also carrying around a device with a hinge and a massive folding screen. Drop it once on pavement, and you might be explaining to Apple why your $2,000 phone looks like modern art. Durability is still the elephant doing parkour in the room. Let's be honest about the competition. Samsung's Galaxy Z Fold series has been the king of foldables by default, mostly because no one else really tried. But Samsung's design has one glaring issue: that tall, narrow front screen and inner display. It's restrictive, it's awkward. Apple looked at that and said, wider is better, and they're right. Oppo's Find N series actually nailed the compact design first, but Oppo doesn't have Apple's ecosystem, app optimization, or the entire Western market locked down. Samsung's rumored Z Fold 8 might copy Apple's wider approach, which tells you everything. When Samsung starts copying Apple's foldable that hasn't even launched yet, you know Apple did something right. The iPhone Fold's real weapon isn't specs, it's integration. AirDrop, handoff, iMessage, iCloud, seamless syncing with your MacBook, iPad, and Apple Watch. Samsung's ecosystem exists, but it's not the same. Apple's building a foldable that feels like it was always meant to be part of the family, sitting right between the iPhone and the iPad mini without stepping on either one's toes. That's strategic genius. Here's my take, and it's probably going to annoy some people. The iPhone Fold isn't for upgraders, it's for switchers. Apple's not trying to convince you to ditch your iPhone 15 Pro Max. They're trying to convince Galaxy Z Fold owners and foldable curious Android users that there's finally a foldable that doesn't feel like a beta test. This is Apple's iPad strategy all over again. They didn't invent tablets, but they made the first one normal people actually wanted to buy. Same playbook here. And honestly, that wider aspect ratio decision alone makes this more appealing than anything Samsung's shipped. Movies, multitasking, even just scrolling Instagram, everything benefits. Samsung prioritized folding, compactness. Apple prioritized what you actually do on the screen. That's the difference between engineering for specs and designing for humans. Now let's pump the brakes before we all start refreshing Apple's store page. Price is going to hurt. There's no universe where this launches under $1,800. And it'll probably flirt with $2,000 or more. That's mortgage payment territory. And while Apple's known for build quality, foldables are inherently fragile. One bad drop, one grain of sand in the hinge, one screen protector applied wrong, and you're staring at a very expensive repair bill. Durability is still unproven. Apple can lab test this thing a million times, but real-world chaos is undefeated. Software is another question mark. iOS will need serious optimization for foldable multitasking, app continuity, and gesture controls. If Apple half-bakes the software at launch, like they did with Stage Manager on iPad, early adopters are going to feel like glorified beta testers. And let's talk repairability. If this thing breaks, you're not fixing it yourself, and third-party repairs are probably going to void everything. Apple's ecosystem is a walled garden, and foldable repairs are going to be a walled fortress. Bottom line, if these leaks are accurate, the iPhone Fold is the first foldable that feels like it was designed for humans, not engineers showing off. The wider aspect ratio, the usable outer display, the ecosystem integration. Apple didn't just join the foldable race, they showed up fashionably late with a better plan, but it's going to be expensive, potentially fragile, and definitely not for everyone. If you're deep in the Apple ecosystem and you've been waiting for a foldable that doesn't feel like a gamble, this might be it. If you're on Android, happy with your Z Fold, or just not ready to trust a folding screen, wait for version 2. So here's my question for you. Would you actually trust a foldable iPhone, or is this still too risky for daily life? Drop your honest take in the comments. If you want a deeper breakdown the second more leaks hit, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you're curious how the iPhone Fold stacks up against the iPad mini, I've got a video breaking that down right here. Apple just changed foldables. Let's see if anyone can keep up. Peace out.